It's way too dark in this cabin, and I got an extra window on Facebook Marketplace. The original window that came with the cabin didn't do great at keeping heat in and flies and wasps out. I don't know if you've ever tried to fall asleep with a fly buzzing through the room, but it's really annoying. To top it all off, without any electric here, the cabin stays dark longer than necessary in the morning, and it's hard to do anything without the door open during the day. We're going to be solving all these problems today with minimal effort. As you know, I try to do everything as cheap as I can without sacrificing quality. Paying someone to replace one window with a larger one and installing another isn't cheap. Based on my research, it could easily cost $1,500 and up for windows and labor. A new double pane window is easily $200+ at a home improvement store. We searched a lot of places, but I ended up finding two similar windows for $70 on Facebook Marketplace, much better than $400 plus. I also got a huge discount on the extra 2x4s needed for this project. I'll tell you more about how I managed that a bit later. If you had windows installed or replaced, let me know what the cost was. Also, let me know your thoughts on how much this project will end up costing me in the comments below. I will let you know what the entire project cost was. Whoever is closest gets a virtual high five. Replacing the original window allowed more light in and made a big difference in heat retention. So before we finished the walls, and since we had an extra window, we decided to add it to the cabin as well. I wanted the windows to match on both sides. The wall with the original window had a bit of a different framing because of the door. Fitting the window to match ended up requiring a bit of framing on the opposite wall as well. I found adding a 2x4 on one side of the frame and splitting one wall cavity on the other side of the frame would make the perfect size hole for the new window. On the top and bottom of the window frame, I would use the 2x4s that I cut out. Doing this, I only had to buy two 2x4s. When I bought the 2x4s, I just picked out two straight ones. I didn't look to make sure they were perfect. When I went to check out, the cashier said that they were seconds due to all the knots and such in the wood. I ended up paying $3 for two 2x4s. I got pretty lucky, don't you think? With the new framing installed, I cut out the insulation where the window will go, and after that I needed to remove the studs. I figured the best way to remove the studs with what I had available would be my multi-tool. I cut as straight as I could and removed the two studs where the window will go. The pieces I cut out were a little long to frame out the top and bottom, so I cut them down to size and finished out the window frame. On this trip, I was able to be here for the night and half the next day. So I worked by battery light until the window was framed out. I bought this little adapter to turn my battery into an outlet. The concept is really cool, but the 20-watt LED light drained the battery in just a few hours, and I thought it was going to last well over 8 hours. I wish the battery lasted longer, as this would have been a pretty cool solution longer term until we could afford to put solar panels in. At this point though, it was dark and I thought it would be easier to finish the window in the morning, so I left cutting the hole out and installing the window until the next day. It was deer season, so I woke up extra early to go hunt a bit. I didn't have any luck, and to be honest, that was a good thing. I'm not sure I would have managed to finish installing the window if I ended up harvesting a deer. We have a bunch of other projects for the property to attract all types of wildlife. The peacefulness here is great, but seeing a bunch of cool wildlife is even better. We have a plan to plant a bunch of chestnut and persimmon trees, but that's for a later time. Let's get back to it. I used the multi-tool again to cut the window out from the inside. It was much easier that way than trying to cut it from the outside. I just followed the frame I installed yesterday to make the job easy. With the siding cut out, I installed the water barrier and got ready to install the window. This would have been a great time to have a helper here. It would have made this part of the job much easier, but I was determined to make it work, especially since there is a giant hole in our cabin now. I managed to lift the window from inside the cabin into the frame and attached a screw to the top of the window to make sure it didn't fall out. What made this a bit more difficult is I wanted to add a bead of caulk to the top and sides as a water barrier so I couldn't wiggle the window all over the place. Once I had the window square and level with shims, I pulled the window as tight as I could from the inside and put a screw through the bottom and the top of the windowsill. It's very important to line up the screws with the shims to make sure you don't warp the window frame. If I had a helper, I would have nailed the window in place from the outside first instead. Once the window was fully in place and nailed in, I added a water barrier membrane to the sides first and then to the top on the outside of the cabin to make sure the water would shed properly. With that complete, I can now add spray foam to the inside to make sure everything was insulated properly. Lastly, I framed out the front-facing window with the extra wall pieces I had on hand before we got all the wood for the cabin walls. I only had enough to do the sides and top on the front-facing window. We have to get more shipping containers, take them apart, plane them, and trim the edges. The video that explains how we do this is linked in the top right-hand corner. The whole cost of the project for both windows and all the materials was less than $100. You can also see how much bigger these new windows are than the old window. Thanks for watching, and remember, keep building your dreams.